Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher emperor, and his teachings on clear thinking. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, is renowned not only for his wisdom, but for the extraordinary circumstances in which he applied his philosophy. Born into a life of privilege and power, Aurelius ruled the Roman Empire from 161 to 180 CE, during a time of significant upheaval. Known as the last of the 5 good emperors, his reign was marked by wars, plagues, and political unrest. Yet despite these immense pressures, Aurelius consistently applied Stoic principles, maintaining a commitment to fairness, justice, and personal integrity. What makes Aurelius truly remarkable is the level of self-discipline and moral clarity he achieved, despite holding one of the most powerful positions in history. As emperor, he had near unlimited access to luxury, wealth, and personal gratification, temptations that could easily corrupt even the most virtuous individual. Yet instead of indulging in excess or tyranny, Aurelius turned to the teachings of Stoicism, a philosophy that values rationality, virtue, and inner peace over external wealth or status. In doing so, he managed to cultivate a level of emotional resilience and clarity that allowed him to lead with wisdom, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. The Meditations, a guide to self-mastery. Throughout his reign, Marcus Aurelius also found time to write the Meditations, a series of personal reflections that have since become one of the most important texts in the history of Stoic philosophy. This collection of thoughts, originally intended for his own self-improvement, provides profound insights into the human condition and serves as a guide for anyone seeking to develop greater mental clarity, emotional resilience, and moral virtue. In Meditations, Aurelius often reflects on the importance of perceiving the world as it truly is, free from the distortions of emotion and personal bias. His philosophy centers on cultivating a cosmic perspective, one in which individual concerns and anxieties are understood as mere fragments of a much larger whole. This shift in perspective allows us to detach from the stress of daily life and recognize that many of our concerns are trivial in the grand scheme of things. As a leader dealing with war, famine, and political intrigue, Aurelius relied heavily on Stoic teachings to navigate these crises with calmness and rationality. His ability to see past the noise of immediate events and focus on what was truly important, justice, fairness, and the well-being of his people, was a testament to his deep understanding of Stoic principles. And it is from these principles that we can draw 5 key lessons on how to develop a rational mind based on the teachings of Marcus Aurelius. Lesson 1. Train your perception. One of the core teachings of Stoicism, particularly emphasized by Marcus Aurelius, is the importance of controlling our perception. He famously wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." This might sound simple, but it addresses one of the most powerful truths in Stoic philosophy. The way we perceive and interpret events is far more important than the events themselves. We live in a world where we are constantly making judgments about people, situations, even ourselves. Our mind automatically categorizes everything we encounter as good, bad, beautiful, ugly, interesting, or boring. But this instinctive judgment often stems from our emotions and biases, and these judgments are not always based on reality. In fact, they are frequently distorted by our feelings, leading us to experience unnecessary stress or dissatisfaction. Consider a common example. Imagine you're having a bad day, and every small inconvenience feels like an additional blow. You get stuck in traffic, spill coffee on your shirt, and have an awkward interaction with a colleague. By the end of the day, you label the entire experience as terrible. But if you stop to question these judgments, if you choose not to let those minor incidents define your day, you might realize that the day itself wasn't so bad after all. It's your perception, colored by emotion, that has made it feel worse than it actually was. Aurelius teaches us to be aware of this process of judgment and, more importantly, to recognize that we have the power to change it. When we encounter something that feels negative or harmful, we should pause and ask ourselves, is this truly bad, or is it simply my perception that makes it seem so? This practice of questioning our initial reactions allows us to reframe our experiences and approach life with greater rationality and calmness. One Stoic exercise for training perception is called turning the obstacle upside down. The idea is to view every difficulty or setback as an opportunity for growth. For example, if a coworker is slow to learn and their mistakes affect the team's progress, instead of reacting with frustration, you can see this as an opportunity to practice patience, improve your teaching skills, and develop resilience. Marcus Aurelius himself emphasized this mindset when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." By shifting your perception, you can transform obstacles into stepping stones toward personal growth. Lesson 2. Learn to control your emotions. In meditations, Marcus Aurelius often reflects on the dangers of letting emotions, particularly anger, cloud our judgment. Stop allowing your emotions to override what your mind tells you, he advises. The Stoics believe that emotions, while natural, can distort our ability to see things clearly and make rational decisions. Therefore, learning to control our emotions is essential for developing a rational mind. But what does it mean to control emotions? Importantly, the Stoics did not advocate for suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. Instead, they encouraged a form of emotional redirection. When we experience strong emotions like anger, fear, or anxiety, we should not deny them, but rather seek to channel them in constructive ways. For instance, if someone betrays you and you feel anger, simply suppressing that anger won't resolve the situation. It will only fester. Instead, ask yourself, what can I do with this anger? Can I use it to improve myself or the situation? Rather than lashing out, you could express your feelings calmly and try to resolve the issue through dialogue. Or, if the situation cannot be repaired, you can use the experience as motivation to set healthier boundaries in future relationships. Similarly, anxiety can be redirected into productive action. Suppose you're anxious about asking your boss for a raise. Instead of letting that anxiety paralyze you, use it as fuel to prepare thoroughly. Think through possible questions your boss might ask and develop strong responses. In this way, your fear becomes a tool that helps you succeed, rather than an obstacle that holds you back. Aurelius' teachings remind us that while emotions are part of the human experience, they should not dictate our actions. By learning to control and redirect our emotions, we can maintain a sense of calm and clarity, even in challenging situations. I'll continue expanding the remaining lessons with deeper insights and examples that connect with your audience. How does this sound for a start? Would you like to tweak any sections? Lesson 3. Accept what you cannot control. One of the most central tenets of Stoicism, emphasized repeatedly by Marcus Aurelius, is the distinction between what we can and cannot control. This idea is succinctly captured in the Stoic mantra. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. This may seem simple at first glance, but the implications are profound and life-altering once fully understood and embraced. In meditations, Aurelius often reflects on this idea with calm acceptance, writing, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The Stoics believe that much of our suffering comes not from the events themselves, but from our futile attempts to control or change things that are beyond our influence. When we expend energy trying to alter external circumstances, whether it's the actions of others, the outcome of a situation, or even the weather, we set ourselves up for frustration and disappointment. This in turn creates anxiety and mental unrest. Think about how often we allow ourselves to be upset by things that are completely outside of our control. Perhaps it's an unexpected change in plans, an argument with a friend, or even something as trivial as a social media post that angers us. We invest time and emotional energy into worrying, complaining, or trying to fix the situation, all the while neglecting the one thing we can control, our response to it. Marcus Aurelius teaches that by accepting what we cannot control, we liberate ourselves from much of the emotional turmoil that plagues modern life. This does not mean we passively accept everything without action. Instead, it means we focus our efforts on what can be influenced, our own thoughts, actions, and attitudes. By shifting our focus inward, we regain a sense of agency and clarity. For example, if you lose a job opportunity that you were hoping for, it's easy to spiral into self-doubt or blame external factors. But instead of fixating on the loss or what went wrong, Stoic philosophy would encourage you to accept that the decision was outside your control. What you can control is how you react. You could focus on improving your skills, seeking new opportunities, or reflecting on how to better prepare for future interviews. By directing your energy toward what you can influence, you regain power over the situation. This approach can be especially freeing in the face of life's biggest challenges. In moments of deep uncertainty, such as health scares, financial difficulties, or personal loss, understanding the limits of our control can prevent us from falling into despair. Marcus Aurelius knew this well, having faced war, plagues, and personal tragedy during his reign. Yet through it all, he reminded himself, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." Accepting what we cannot control does not mean giving up. It means freeing ourselves to fully engage with the present moment without being shackled by the impossible weight of trying to control everything. Lesson 4. Cultivate a mindset of service. Marcus Aurelius, as emperor, held immense power. Yet despite this, his writings reflect a deep commitment to service, not only to the Roman people but to the broader human community. "What is your vocation?" he wrote, "to be a good person." This speaks to a core Stoic belief that our lives are not lived in isolation, but are interconnected with the lives of others, and that our actions should reflect a sense of duty toward the greater good. In Stoicism, service to others is not seen as an optional virtue or something that is only expected of those in leadership. Instead, it is viewed as an essential component of living a virtuous life. Aurelius understood that true fulfillment does not come from selfish pursuits, but from acting in the service of humanity, whether that means helping a neighbor in need, contributing to society, or simply treating others with kindness and respect. For modern audiences, this idea is especially relevant in a world that often prioritizes individual success and personal achievement over collective well-being. We are frequently encouraged to focus on self-promotion, personal goals, and accumulating wealth or status. However, Stoicism teaches that these pursuits, while not inherently bad, should never come at the expense of our duty to others. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself of the transient nature of fame and fortune, writing, "The only wealth which you will keep forever is the wealth you have given away." In our personal and professional lives, cultivating a mindset of service can transform how we approach challenges. For instance, rather than viewing your job as a means to an end, simply a way to earn money or climb the career ladder, Stoicism encourages you to ask, "How can I contribute? How can I make a difference in the lives of others through my work?" This shift in perspective not only leads to greater personal satisfaction, but also fosters a sense of purpose and connection with the larger world. Aurelius also recognized that true service requires humility. Even as emperor, he saw himself as a small part of the larger cosmos, writing, "Soon you will have forgotten the world, and soon the world will have forgotten you." This humility allowed him to lead with compassion and fairness, understanding that his power was temporary and that his true legacy would be measured by the good he did for others. For us, this means recognizing that our worth is not solely defined by our personal achievements or social standing. Instead, it is measured by the impact we have on those around us and the contributions we make to the common good. Whether through small acts of kindness or larger efforts to improve society, cultivating a mindset of service enriches both our lives and the world we inhabit. Lesson 5. Live in accordance with nature. The Stoics believed that to live a fulfilling and meaningful life, we must align ourselves with nature. Not only the external world of nature, but also our own internal nature as rational beings. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about the importance of living in harmony with the natural order of things, both in terms of accepting what life brings and in behaving according to our highest rational and moral capabilities. But what does it mean to live in accordance with nature? For Aurelius and the Stoics, it meant recognizing that we are all part of a larger, interconnected universe governed by natural laws. Just as the seasons change and the tides ebb and flow, so too do human lives follow a natural rhythm of growth, decline, and death. Understanding this can bring a sense of peace and acceptance. Rather than fighting against the inevitable or resisting change, we can learn to flow with it, embracing life cycles with grace. Living in accordance with nature also means living in accordance with our own rational nature. As human beings, we have the capacity for reason, and the Stoics believed that we should use this gift to guide our actions and decisions. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself to act in ways that were consistent with his values and principles, regardless of external circumstances. "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be," he wrote. Be one. For modern audiences, this lesson is particularly important. In today's fast-paced, technology-driven world, we often lose touch with both the natural world and our own inner nature. We are constantly bombarded by distractions, pulled in different directions by the demands of work, social media, and modern life. Yet Stoicism reminds us that true peace and fulfillment come from simplicity and alignment with what is most essential. By reconnecting with nature, both external and internal, we can regain a sense of balance and purpose. This could mean spending more time in nature, allowing yourself to be still and present, free from distractions. It could also mean reflecting on your core values and ensuring that your actions align with those values, even when it's difficult. Living in accordance with nature, as Marcus Aurelius did, is not about retreating from the world, but about engaging with it fully and authentically, guided by reason and virtue. Lesson 6. Practice negative visualization. One of the most thought-provoking techniques in Stoicism is the practice of premeditatio malorum, or negative visualization. At first glance, this concept might seem counterintuitive or even pessimistic. Why deliberately imagine worst-case scenarios? But for the Stoics, this practice is a powerful tool for building resilience and appreciating the present. Marcus Aurelius often employed negative visualization in his meditations, reminding himself of the transient and unpredictable nature of life. He would reflect on potential losses, failures, or hardships, not to dwell in fear, but to cultivate a mindset that could endure and rise above them. By preparing for adversity in his mind, he fortified himself against the inevitable challenges that life would throw his way. In modern life, we are often encouraged to think positively and avoid contemplating negative outcomes. There is a cultural emphasis on optimism and the law of attraction. Think good thoughts, and good things will happen. While there is certainly value in maintaining a hopeful and optimistic outlook, the Stoics offer a nuanced approach that balances this with the acceptance of life's uncertainties. Negative visualization is not about expecting bad things to happen. It's about mentally preparing yourself to handle them with grace and strength if they do. By imagining potential setbacks, whether it's the loss of a job, a relationship, or even our health, we come face to face with our deepest fears. This might sound unsettling, but it actually has the opposite effect. Once we allow ourselves to confront these fears, they lose some of their power over us. We come to realize that even if the worst happens, we are still capable of enduring it. This realization builds emotional resilience and frees us from the anxiety that comes from constantly fearing the unknown. For example, imagine you're preparing for a big presentation at work. You might feel anxious about the possibility of failure. What if the presentation goes poorly? What if you forget your points or the audience isn't receptive? By practicing negative visualization, you mentally walk through these scenarios in advance. You imagine yourself stumbling or receiving critical feedback. But then, you imagine how you would handle it. Perhaps you calmly acknowledge the mistake, correct yourself, and move forward. Or maybe you use the feedback as an opportunity to improve. The key is that you don't stop at the negative outcome. You also visualize how you would respond to it with rationality and composure. This technique can be applied to nearly every aspect of life, whether it's dealing with financial difficulties, personal loss, or even global crises. Negative visualization helps us to emotionally prepare ourselves for the inevitable challenges. And paradoxically, by imagining the worst, we come to appreciate the present moment more deeply. When we reflect on the possibility of losing something, whether it's our health, our loved ones, or even our daily comforts, we become more mindful of the value those things hold in our lives. This practice fosters a profound sense of gratitude for what we have, rather than taking things for granted. The modern world often encourages us to seek constant comfort and security, leading to an aversion to any thought of hardship. But the Stoics understood that discomfort and difficulty are inevitable parts of life. By integrating negative visualization into our daily practice, we can not only reduce our fear of the unknown, but also enhance our ability to live fully in the present, appreciating every moment for what it is. Lesson 7. Embrace impermanence. Another key concept in Stoic philosophy that Marcus Aurelius reflects on throughout meditations is the transient nature of life and all things within it. He frequently reminds himself that everything, people, material possessions, even our own existence, is fleeting. Think of yourself as dead, he writes. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly. This may sound morbid, but it's actually an invitation to fully embrace the present moment, understanding that life is precious precisely because it is impermanent. The Stoics believed that accepting the impermanence of life allows us to live more authentically and freely. When we recognize that everything around us is subject to change, decay, and eventual disappearance, we are liberated from the fear of loss. Rather than clinging tightly to things or people, we learn to appreciate them in the moment, knowing that they are not ours to keep forever. In today's fast-paced, consumer-driven world, the idea of impermanence is often resisted. We are constantly bombarded with messages that encourage us to accumulate more possessions, more success, more experiences. We cling to the illusion of permanence, hoping that if we just achieve enough or own enough, we can stave off the inevitable changes of life. But the Stoics saw this clinging as a source of suffering. By trying to hold on to what is by nature impermanent, we set ourselves up for disappointment and frustration when it eventually slips away. Embracing impermanence, on the other hand, allows us to live with a sense of peace and acceptance. Rather than fearing change, we come to see it as a natural part of life. The beauty of a flower, for instance, lies not just in its vibrant bloom, but in the knowledge that it will soon wither. The same can be said of our relationships, our achievements, and even our own lives. By accepting that these things are temporary, we can enjoy them more fully, without the anxiety that comes from trying to preserve them forever. This Stoic principle is particularly relevant in dealing with personal loss. Whether it's the death of a loved one, the end of a relationship, or the loss of a job, change is often accompanied by grief and resistance. We want to hold on to the way things were, to resist the flow of time. But Marcus Aurelius reminds us that everything we love is bound by the law of impermanence. Everything is just an opinion, he writes, and it is in constant change, flowing and passing away. For modern listeners, this idea of embracing impermanence can be especially liberating. It allows us to release the need for control and to live with greater fluidity and openness. Rather than trying to freeze moments in time, whether it's a peak career achievement, a relationship in its early stages, or even our own youth, we learn to accept that change is inevitable, and that each phase of life has its own unique value. This mindset can also help us navigate the pressures of modern life more gracefully. In a culture that often equates success with stability and permanence, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the constant need to lock things down, whether it's securing a certain job, relationship, or lifestyle. But the Stoics would remind us that none of these things are guaranteed. Instead of chasing an illusion of permanence, we can focus on the present, doing our best with the time and resources we have, while accepting that change is the only constant. When we embrace impermanence, we stop fearing the future and start appreciating the present. We stop clinging to what was and start engaging with what is. This doesn't mean we become indifferent to loss or change. It means we understand that these things are part of the natural cycle of life. And with this understanding comes a deep sense of freedom and peace. By practicing negative visualization and embracing impermanence, we can cultivate a deeper sense of resilience and gratitude in our lives. These Stoic principles offer a way to navigate the uncertainties and challenges of modern life with greater wisdom and composure. They teach us to prepare for adversity, appreciate the present, and let go of the illusion of control, allowing us to live more fully and authentically. These lessons from Marcus Aurelius and Stoicism provide a framework for developing a clear and rational mind, capable of navigating the complexities of life with wisdom, calmness, and purpose. By training our perception, controlling our emotions, accepting what we cannot control, cultivating a mindset of service, and living in accordance with nature, we can develop the mental clarity and resilience to thrive in an uncertain and ever-changing world.